Okay, y'all, here's your second activity for the week. Today you are writing a narrative flash draft. And remember, a flash draft is just a very short writing piece. And your goal is to be practicing one writing technique. So the writing technique I want you to practice today is exploding a moment using imagery and description. I really want you to focus on slowing down time and describing every single detail. So you're going to choose one of these two prompts. The first is a baking-related disaster. So you could write a flash draft about a moment where everything goes wrong while you're baking. I want you to remember that you're not going to tell me a whole story. You're just going to write about the moment when everything goes wrong. So for example, let's say your hand slips while you're making chocolate chip cookies and you drop the whole container of salt into the cookie dough. You are going to start writing right before your hand slips. Don't tell me about all the other ingredients you put in. Just start writing right before everything goes wrong. Your second option is to write a flash draft about taking a bite of a baked item. It could be delicious or it could be horrid tasting. I want you to describe every single flavor and texture. Your goal is to make the reader feel like they can taste it. So I chose option 1. I want to look at my flash draft now. So I'm going to read it once through, and then I want to talk about a couple things that I'm doing as a writer. I squeezed the frosting bag and slowly moved it around the cake. The frosting came out in a perfectly straight line, creating a crisp white lip around each layer. When I felt my hand begin to shake, I paused and took a deep breath. This has to be perfect, I thought. I looked around the tent at the other contestants' tiered cakes, each one beautifully layered and frosted. I looked up at the clock. 3 minutes. I could do this. I continued frosting. At the top, I began creating my final touch, an oversized, bright pink peony. This was the detail that would clinch me the win. I was sure of it. I started with the outside petals, using a quick wavy motion to form each one, and then worked my way in. I had planned the flower to cover the entire top of the cake, so there were 12 different layers of petals. I frosted my way towards the center of the flower, glancing periodically at the clock. 1 minute. I moved my hand a little quicker. As I neared the middle, the top layer of the cake began to sag just slightly. I knew that my layers were a little underdone, yet I was sure that they could hold the weight of the flower. I kept frosting, finishing up the inside petals. It was turning out beautiful. I grabbed my dark green bag of frosting and put a final dollop in the center. As I pulled the bag away, the center of the flower began to sink. Slowly, petals began sliding towards the center as if they were pulled by magnets. I stood frozen and watched as my 8-tiered cake caved in on itself. "That's time," the host shouted. I gasped as the middle dropped, creating a fist-sized sinkhole. What were once petals, now mounds, poured into the hole one after the other. Okay, so I want you to notice a few things. I want you to notice that first, I am starting to write in the moment. I'm not writing an entire story. I'm not giving you backstory. I'm writing right in the middle of the action. I'm also using first person, so I'm using pronouns like I and my. I also want you to notice that I'm using imagery, like I frosted the cake out. The frosting came out in a perfectly straight line, creating a crisp white lip around each layer. I'm really describing everything that I see and hear and feel and taste and touch. I want you to notice that I'm writing in slow motion. I started with the outside petals using a quick wavy motion, right? Really work on writing in slow motion and describing every single detail. And then lastly, as with any narrative piece that we write, I want you to be writing in short paragraphs. Do not give me one huge paragraph.